When a woman finally realizes her worth, the world around her shifts, sometimes slowly, sometimes violently, but always inevitably. Because when she rises from the place where she once doubted herself, once accepted breadcrumbs, once believed that patience would turn immaturity into effort, she becomes someone unrecognizable to her past. The moment she says, "I am done shrinking," everything that fed on her uncertainty begins to lose its power. That is the quiet revolution of self-worth. It doesn't scream, but it recalibrates everything. You can watch it change her posture, her decisions, her language, her expectations. She stops waiting for someone to choose her and begins choosing the life she knows she deserves. The power of a woman who knows her worth is not loud confidence, it is disciplined clarity. She doesn't rise because she is angry, she rises because she is finished betraying herself. She understands that attention is not affection, effort is not commitment, and charm is not character. She has learned, often the hard way, that hope can become a trap when it is placed in the wrong hands. So, she gathers the pieces of herself from every place she once abandoned them and puts them back where they belong. She stops apologizing for wanting loyalty, consistency, and emotional truth. She refuses to be the emotional caretaker for men who haven't taken responsibility for their own growth. She understands that love without accountability is just chaos dressed as passion. And this is where her real transformation begins. She stops tolerating the behavior she once explained. She stops defending people who refuse to defend her. She stops romanticizing potential and finally values action over words. This is not bitterness. This is self-respect maturing. It's her realizing that peace isn't found in someone else's validation, it's found in her willingness to walk away from anything that disrupts her spirit. And when she walks away, she doesn't slam doors, she simply closes them with the dignity of someone who has finally learned that not every connection deserves a lifetime. A woman who knows her worth becomes impossible to manipulate because she no longer negotiates with her insecurities. She has seen what happens when she abandons herself, and she refuses to relive that story. She doesn't chase attention anymore. She commands respect through her standards. She doesn't beg for consistency. She becomes consistent with her boundaries. She doesn't fear being alone. She fears losing herself again. And that fear keeps her aligned, disciplined, and anchored in truth. What makes her powerful is not that she is stronger than everyone else, but that she has become stronger than her former self. The version of her who once accepted confusion as passion, mixed signal as affection, or inconsistency as effort no longer exists. She has buried that version with the silence of someone who learned the lesson deeply, painfully, and finally. Now she chooses clarity over attachment, purpose over distraction, and self-respect over temporary emotional highs. She becomes a woman who doesn't ask, "Why didn't he value me?" but instead says, "Why did I stay where value was never offered?" And when she reaches this level of self-understanding, she becomes magnetic, not because she is trying, but because she is aligned. She stops over-giving. She stops over-explaining. She stops performing to be chosen. The right people feel her presence not because she demands attention, but because she moves with intention. Men recognize her as someone who cannot be lied to with emotional theatrics. She sees patterns quickly, listens to behavior more than promises, and responds with calm, unshakable firmness. She becomes the kind of woman whose no is final and whose yes is earned. But the greatest strength she develops is this: she no longer sees relationship as a place to be rescued, but as a place to contribute from fullness. She wants a partner, not a project. She seeks compatibility, not chaos. She invests in people who invest back. She walks with a kind of certainty that cannot be taught. It can only be built through self-honesty. She knows that her value does not increase when someone recognizes it, nor does it decrease when someone fails to. Her worth is not dependent, it is inherent. A woman who knows her worth becomes unstoppable because she becomes responsible, not for the actions of others, but for her response to them. She builds her life with direction, discipline, and purpose. She no longer moves from emotion alone, but from clarity. She no longer chooses from loneliness, but from alignment. And in this transformation, she becomes the kind of woman who doesn't just rise, she elevates everything around her. Her presence becomes a standard. Her choices become a message. Her life becomes evidence that self-respect is not a luxury, it is the foundation of power. And once she knows her worth, she is never the same again. A woman who knows her worth becomes immovable. She stops negotiating with situations that undermine her dignity. From the moment she reaches that point of self-awareness, a transformation begins that is both subtle and undeniable. She no longer bends to the pressures of others' expectations or sacrifices her peace for approval. Every decision she makes is filtered through the lens of her value, and she refuses to accept anything less than what aligns with her principles. She understands that compromise is necessary in life, but compromising her integrity, her boundaries, or her sense of self is a betrayal she will never permit. This immovability does not come from stubbornness, it comes from clarity. It comes from an internal reckoning with the truth that her worth is inherent, not earned by validation from others. She stops excusing behaviors that once seemed forgivable and stops tolerating inconsistencies that once left her confused. She becomes someone who does not merely react to life but engages it with deliberate intention, measuring each step against the standard she has set for herself. This kind of woman is no longer swayed by manipulation or charm because she recognizes the difference between love and convenience, attention and respect. She has learned from past disappointments, heartbreaks, and betrayals that giving space to those who do not honor her value is a waste of her energy. Every interaction is a test of alignment. Does this reflect the respect, effort, and authenticity she expects? If it does, she invests fully, knowing her energy is sacred. If it doesn't, she steps back without hesitation, understanding that scarcity is not her problem, her standards are. She does not fear being alone, because she has come to understand that her presence alone is powerful, and that being with someone who does not elevate her is far worse than being on her own. Her solitude becomes a space of growth, reflection, and empowerment, a sanctuary where she reconnects with her goals, her ambitions, and the truth of who she is. The immovability of a woman who knows her worth extends beyond relationships into every area of life. She refuses to settle in her career, her friendships, or her environment. She sets high expectations for herself because she recognizes that living below her potential is a disservice to her own capabilities. Her discipline and focus become her greatest allies, enabling her to navigate obstacles without compromise and to turn challenges into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. She understands that life will always test her resolve, but she meets those tests with calm certainty. She does not seek to control outcomes, she seeks to control herself, her choices, and her standards. That is where true power lies, in the ability to be unshakable, not through force, but through self-possession. Emotionally, she develops resilience that others might mistake for coldness, but it is anything but that. Her heart is not hardened, it is guarded with wisdom. She knows the difference between compassion and sacrifice, empathy and overextension. She does not allow guilt, obligation, or fear to dictate her actions. Instead, she chooses alignment, integrity, and truth. People may attempt to test her limits, to challenge her resolve, or to provoke her into bending, but she remains steadfast. Her sense of self is no longer negotiable. She has cultivated an inner fortress where self-doubt cannot penetrate and where respect is non-negotiable. This is the essence of her immovability. It is born not of arrogance, but of a profound understanding of her intrinsic value. Moreover, a woman who knows her worth wields influence without demanding it. Her presence commands attention, not through theatrics, but through quiet confidence and the consistency of her actions. She becomes a benchmark for others, a living example of what it means to live by one's own standards. Those around her are either inspired to rise or confronted with their own lack of alignment. She no longer seeks to please, she seeks to exist authentically. In doing so, she attracts people, opportunities, and experiences that resonate with her values. She filters out distractions, toxicities, and superficiality, allowing only those who are capable of genuine connection to remain in her sphere. Her boundaries are precise, her decisions intentional, and her focus unshakable. Her immovability does not mean she is rigid or incapable of growth. On the contrary, she evolves continuously, learning from each experience and integrating lessons into a stronger, more refined version of herself. She chooses growth over comfort, courage over fear, and integrity over convenience. She becomes a woman whose presence is transformative, whose choices are deliberate, and whose life is a testament to the power of self-respect. Every setback is met with resolve, every challenge with strategy, and every relationship with discernment. She does not need validation to affirm her worth, because it is self-evident to her, and that self-evidence radiates outward, shaping the way the world interacts with her. Ultimately, the immovability of a woman who knows her worth is not a defense mechanism, it is a declaration. It is a refusal to participate in the erosion of her value and a commitment to honor herself in every thought, word, and action. She becomes an unshakable force not through aggression, but through alignment with her truth. She stops negotiating with situations that undermine her dignity because she has recognized that her life, her time, and her spirit are far too precious to be compromised. And in that realization, she becomes unstoppable. When she aligns her emotions with her values, she forces the world around her to respond with respect, not excuses. This alignment is not a matter of convenience or fleeting self-esteem. It is a deliberate choice to live from a place of truth, clarity, and uncompromising standards. She understands that emotions, while powerful and important, are not guides to decision-making when they conflict with her principles. Emotions can be messy, impulsive, and persuasive, but values are steady, rooted, and unshakable. By anchoring herself in what she knows to be right, necessary, and non-negotiable, she creates a life where her energy is not squandered on explanations or justification. People around her are no longer allowed to blur the lines between what is acceptable and what is not. They are met with consistency, intentionality, and a quiet authority that demands acknowledgement. She no longer tolerates behavior that once caused confusion or disappointment because she has learned that respect cannot coexist with inconsistency, and love cannot thrive where boundaries are ignored. This alignment is visible in every aspect of her life, from the relationships she cultivates to the goals she pursues. She does not compromise her peace for attention, nor does she bend to please others at the expense of her integrity. She recognizes that some people will try to manipulate her with charm, guilt, or promises, but she sees these tactics clearly because her inner compass is calibrated to truth. She no longer justifies excuses, she observes patterns, evaluates actions, and responds with clarity. Her presence alone communicates a standard that cannot be negotiated, and those who interact with her quickly learn that dishonesty, inconsistency, or disrespect are met not with anger, but with refusal. She does not argue over intentions, she measures outcomes. This is the power of living aligned with values. Hers can no longer hide behind words when actions are required. They are compelled to meet her standards or step aside. Emotionally, this alignment transforms her from reactive to disciplined. She feels deeply, but she does not act impulsively based on momentary feelings. She has trained herself to filter emotion through the lens of her principle, so that fear, anger, or desire do not dictate her choices. This creates an inner fortress where she is protected from chaos, drama, and manipulation. She understands that respecting herself is not selfish, it is essential. By standing firm in her values, she models to the world how she expects to be treated. She does not beg for fairness. She demonstrates it in every decision, every interaction, and every boundary she enforces. People who fail to respect this alignment quickly find that she will not bend to accommodate them. And this forces accountability in a way that few others can demand without confrontation. In relationships, this alignment is transformative. She no longer confuses attention for commitment or effort for love. She recognizes that true connection arises when two people operate with honesty, consistency, and mutual respect. She does not waste time on partners who are inconsistent, unreliable, or unwilling to rise to the level she demands. Her standards are not punitive. They are a reflection of the value she assigns to herself. She measures people not by their words but by their actions, and she refuses to accept anything less than what reflects integrity. In doing so, she eliminates ambiguity, confusion, and the emotional drain of chasing validation. Her presence in the lives of others becomes a mirror, reflecting back the respect, consistency, and alignment that she embodies. Professionally, she experiences the same effect. By aligning her actions and decisions with her values, she commands respect, trust, and credibility. She does not cut corners to appease others, nor does she sacrifice her principles for temporary gain. Colleagues, clients, and collaborators quickly learn that her word, her standards, and her commitment are not negotiable. She attracts opportunities that are in harmony with her mission and repels distractions that do not serve her purpose. This alignment gives her focus, drive, and resilience. She approaches challenges not with desperation or reaction, but with strategic clarity rooted in her unyielding sense of worth. Her alignment also manifests in her personal growth. She recognizes that evolving emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually is a responsibility she owes herself. She evaluates her experiences through the filter of her values, learning from mistakes and celebrating victories without losing sight of who she is. She does not compare her journey to others, because she knows that respect both self-respect and the respect she commands from others cannot be borrowed or faked. It must be cultivated through consistency, integrity, and unwavering adherence to what matters most. Ultimately, when a woman aligns her emotions with her values, she becomes a force the world cannot ignore. She does not demand respect through aggression, nor does she seek validation through performance. Instead, she embodies a standard so clear, so consistent, and so grounded that the people and situations around her are forced to rise or be left behind. She becomes immovable not through defiance, but through truth. She becomes magnetic not through charm, but through integrity. She becomes unstoppable not because she controls others, but because she has mastered herself. In living this way, she proves that the greatest power a woman can wield is the alignment of her inner life with her principles, a power that cannot be negotiated, excused, or diminished, and one that transforms everything she touches. Her boundaries are not walls but standards that filter out anything unworthy of her energy. They are not constructed to isolate her from the world or to keep people at a distance, but to protect her sense of self, her dignity, and the limited resource that is her time and emotional energy. She has learned that energy is finite, that it is not meant to be wasted on chaos, manipulation, or people who do not respect her worth. These boundaries are precise, intentional, and unwavering. They serve as a sieve that allows only what aligns with her values, her purpose, and her integrity to pass through. Every decision, every interaction, and every commitment is measured against these standards, and anything that falls short is met not with frustration or guilt, but with calm and deliberate refusal. This is the mark of a woman who has mastered herself. She does not negotiate with disrespect, she does not rationalize inconsistency, and she does not bend to convenience when it comes at the cost of her own peace. Boundaries are not created out of fear, they are born from clarity. She understands that relationships, careers, and opportunities are not simply about access or proximity, they are about alignment. When someone or something threatens that alignment, her boundaries act as a filter, ensuring that she remains surrounded by people, situations, and energies that contribute to her growth, not her depletion. She no longer confuses compromise with surrender, flexibility with weakness, or kindness with overextension. She has learned that saying no is not rejection, it is preservation. She recognizes that boundaries are an act of self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of all authentic power. Without them, she would be subject to the whims of others, at the mercy of circumstances that do not honor her value. With them, she becomes a force that demands accountability and commands integrity without needing to utter a word. Her boundaries extend into her emotional life as well. She does not allow others to manipulate her feelings or dictate her sense of worth. She recognizes the difference between empathy and emotional absorption, between compassion and enabling. She refuses to carry the weight of people who are unwilling to carry their own responsibilities. She chooses carefully where to invest her heart, her time, and her energy, understanding that what is unworthy of her attention will only dilute her power. This creates a space where she can thrive, not merely survive, a space where her mind is clear, her purpose is focused, and her spirit is unshakable. People may test her limits, attempt to provoke her into compromise, or try to erode her standard, but she meets these challenges not with defensiveness, but with unwavering consistency. Her boundaries are her signature, her declaration that she will not participate in anything that diminishes her value or her potential. In the context of relationships, these boundaries are transformative. She does not confuse attention for affection, effort for commitment, or charm for character. She evaluates actions over words and consistency over promises, filtering out those who do not meet her standards without hesitation. She does not chase validation. She expects it to be earned through integrity and effort. When someone cannot meet her standards, she does not negotiate or explain endlessly. She steps back, knowing that her absence will communicate more powerfully than her presence ever could. In doing so, she teaches others how to treat her, not through confrontation, but through the clarity of her boundaries. She becomes someone whose life is structured around her principles rather than the approval of others, and in that structure, she finds freedom, power, and unshakable confidence. Professionally, her boundaries are equally critical. She does not accept environments that compromise her ethics, exploit her time, or undervalue her contributions. She sets clear expectations for colleagues, clients, and collaborators, refuse to tolerate anything less than honesty, reliability, and respect. By doing so, she creates a framework within which she can operate at her highest potential. Her boundaries serve as a compass, guiding her toward opportunity that align with her mission and away from distractions that do not. She understands that energy mismanagement is one of the greatest threats to her growth, and by enforcing her standards, she ensures that every moment is invested in something meaningful and aligned with her purpose. Her boundaries are not static, they are dynamic and informed by experience. She grows, learns, and evolves, adjusting her standards as she gains clarity and wisdom. Yet, even as they evolve, they remain non-negotiable in principle, She will not allow her energy to be drained by people, situations, or behaviors that disrespect her worth. She does not fear confrontation because she understands that boundaries are not aggression, they are self-definition. She becomes a woman whose presence is transformative not because she imposes control, but because she demonstrates the power of self-respect in action. Her life becomes a testament to the principle that clarity, consistency, and integrity attract not only respect but alignment, opportunity, and genuine connection. Ultimately, her boundaries are a reflection of her inner strength. They are a declaration that she will not participate in chaos, tolerate disrespect, or compromise her values. They are the framework that allows her to live fully, intentionally, and powerfully. She filters everything through the measure of her worth, and in doing so, she becomes unstoppable. Her energy, her time, her heart, and her mind are reserved for what is worthy of her life. She does not need to explain herself to anyone, nor does she seek permission to uphold her standards. Her boundaries are her freedom, her clarity, and her power. They are the silent but unbreakable declaration that she knows her worth. She honors it relentlessly, and she will never settle for anything less than she deserves. Her strength comes from responsibility for her choices, her direction, and the meaning she assigns to her life. She understands that power is not given, it is claimed, and it is claimed through deliberate action, self-discipline, and accountability. She refuses to blame circumstances, luck, or the failures of others for where she stands. Every decision she makes is owned fully, whether it leads to triumph or to a lesson learned. This responsibility is not a burden, it is the engine of her empowerment. It transforms her from a passive observer of life into an active architect of her destiny. She no longer allows herself to drift in reaction to others' moods, societal expectations, or fleeting emotions. She chooses deliberately, acts intentionally, and shapes her life according to a standard that she alone defines. Her strength is measured not by the struggles she avoids but by the way she meets them, owning her role in each challenge with courage and clarity. Responsibility becomes the lens through which she views every relationship, opportunity, and interaction. She recognizes that waiting for someone else to validate her, fix her problems, or define her worth is a surrender of her power. Instead, she takes full accountability for her emotions, her responses, and the energy she brings into the world. She does not excuse poor treatment or tolerate disrespect because she knows that responsibility means setting, enforcing boundaries, making choices that align with her values, and refusing to outsource her integrity. Every relationship she engages is approached with clarity. She contributes fully, expects reciprocity, and disengages from anything that diminishes her sense of self. Her choices are purposeful, her expectations are non-negotiable, and she does not let guilt or fear of loss compromise the standards she has set for herself. In this way, responsibility becomes her shield, her compass, and her measure of strength. Her responsibility extends to her own personal growth and development. She does not wait for opportunities to appear or for others to guide her. She actively seeks knowledge, experiences, and challenges that expand her abilities and deepen her understanding. She takes ownership of her failures, learning from them rather than burying them in excuses. She measures success not solely by accolades or recognition but by the integrity and intentionality with which she lives each day. She recognizes that life is not simply a sequence of events but a narrative that she authors, and she embraces the weight of that authorship fully. This conscious ownership of her story cultivates resilience, self-reliance, and an unshakable confidence that no external validation can replicate. In her professional life, responsibility becomes the foundation of influence and leadership. She does not wait for permission to take initiative, and she does not shirk accountability when challenges arise. She stands firmly in her role, navigating obstacles with deliberate strategy and moral clarity. Colleagues, mentors, and collaborators recognize that her commitment is not superficial. She owns the outcomes of her actions, whether successful or challenging, and she inspires others to do the same. She understands that leadership is less about position and more about the consistent demonstration of accountability, integrity, and courage. By embodying responsibility, she naturally elevates herself and those around her, creating a space where excellence is expected and integrity is non-negotiable. Her emotional life is shaped profoundly by this principle of responsibility. She understands that no one else is responsible for her happiness, her sense of worth, or her direction in life. She does not allow herself to be swayed by manipulation, drama, or dependency. Instead, she chooses how she reacts, what she accepts, and how she invests her energy. This conscious ownership of her emotional life creates a stability that others notice immediately. She does not react impulsively, overcompensate, or collapse under pressure. Her strength is visible in her calm, measured responses, in her ability to stand firm under provocation, and in the clarity with which she makes decisions that honor her values. Responsibility allows her to transform challenges into opportunities for growth, and setbacks into lessons that strengthen her resolve rather than diminish it. Even in her personal ambitions and dreams, she applies this principle relentlessly. She does not wait for motivation or inspiration to strike. She creates the conditions for progress through consistent effort and disciplined focus. She sets goals, measures her progress, and corrects course when necessary, holding herself accountable to the life she envisions. She does not surrender to excuses or comfort. She embraces the discomfort of growth, understanding that strength is forged through consistent action, accountability, and the courage to face reality honestly. Her life becomes a testament to the idea that power is inseparable from responsibility. To claim one is to embody the other fully. Ultimately, her strength is not measured by how much she can endure, but by how fully she owns her life. She understands that freedom is inseparable from responsibility, and power is inseparable from self-accountability. She takes ownership of every thought, choice, and action, refusing to hand over control of her life to circumstance, opinion, or chance. In doing so, she becomes unshakable, resolute, and magnetic, a woman who commands respect not through aggression or demand, but through the quiet, relentless force of her integrity and the weight of her choices. She stands as proof that the highest form of power a woman can wield is the full acceptance of responsibility for herself, her direction, and the meaning she assigns to her existence. Her strength is her sovereignty, her authority, and her unassailable truth, and in that, she is unstoppable.